Welcome back into another new session with me, Geetu. So, today we'll be learning the remaining topics in our chapter called Business Environment. I told you chapter, and a pretty interesting chapter as well. So, what are the topics we had completed in our last session? In our last videos, we have completed with the features, the importance of business environment, the dimensions of business environment. So as I've told you, the features will come for a 4 marker or 8 marker. The importance would come for a 4 marker or 8 marker. Dimensions would again come for a practical oriented question, 5 marker, or would come for a 4 marker. And economic environment, these are the topics that we're going to be looking into today. Okay, so these topics, the first two topics are pretty simple topics and pretty easy topics, and this topic again would come for an 8 marker or may come for a 4 marker. Now demonetization of India would come for a 2 marker or may come for a 4 marker, and these are pretty simple topics, trust me. So let's move into our so what is the economic environment of India? Now we have looked into economic environment when we've spoken about the dimensions. You had a small topic which said economic environment. In economic environment, we learned about the inflation rates, the indices, the let's say the currencies, the change in the rupee, the increase in the value of the rupee. We learned about let's say the growth rate of India depending on the businesses that people do. So what was happening is, what is this economic environment of India? You already into the economic reform in India since 1991 until date. Now why is this 1991 so very important, and why is it called as the economic reform? Now a reform refers to something that is a change which happened in the year 1991. Okay, so what was the change that really took place? So they say the meaning of reform, what was the change, why did this change take place, and because of this change it led to the LPG. If you have learned economics properly, in economics you would have learned about these terminologies called liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So, and the review of the economic reforms. So what happened? 1991. So post 1991, a lot of importance was given to the private sector, and before 1991, there was full importance given only to the public sector and the government sector. So if you actually think about your forefathers, let's say your great grandfather, your grandfather, you would actually see, or you would have actually heard your parents saying, our father, great grandfather worked for HAL, BEML, or let's say LRD, or they worked for HMT. All these are nothing but public sector industries, okay, or let's say government industries. I'm just giving you an example, a random example. So those days there was only government industries or sector industries. There were no private companies at all. So what used to happen was, even if companies wanted to come into existence, the government's interference was always there into these companies. So most of the time, people who always finish their education, or let's say the 10th standard, used to go and join these government companies. So they had standardized two shifts. They would go in the morning, or some would go in the afternoon, and by 12 o'clock in the night they would be back in their home, eat, sleep, and that's how the let's say that's how our reform, or that's how our country moved. But after 1991, they understood that if they want to they understood that they cannot continue the same way. There were different people with different thought processes, and they wanted our country India to grow. So that was what the economic reform refers to. So it says India is a very mixed economy, and since our independence, both public sector and private sector coexist. But it was always observed that there was a lot of preference that was given to the public sector and very less importance given to the private sector. So after the 1991, they ensured that there was a lot of importance that was given to the private sector as well. Okay, So that is what the economic reform of India refers to. Lot of importance given to the private sector industries, encouraging them, opening the gates of globalization, liberalization, and private. So, what is these? What are the impacts, or what was the various macro level factors that related to the means of the production and distribution of wealth? If you want India to grow, what are the things that you need to look into? Okay, so these are the things that you need to look into. So, what I have done is I have only highlighted the important terminologies. So, only learn this. This topic may come, may not come. If it comes, it would come for a 4 marker. That's why I'm telling you, learn only the important terminologies. Okay, so uh, the first one is stage of economic development of a country. They wanted to develop our economic development. That is the reason after 1991 they concentrated on developmental or developing our country. Okay, then they wanted to improvise the economic structure. That is, they wanted to have a mixed economy of both public sector as well as private sector companies, not only having public sector but always encouraging the private companies to also take place. So they wanted to encourage economic development, they wanted to encourage economic structure. Then the policies that they wanted to formulate, okay, it related to the monetary and the fiscal policy. Now I have put down a small note here for you. Fiscal policy refer to change in your tax rates, then no specific targets. Just imagine, just remember changes in your plans or changes in certain rules and regulations that were set by the government. Okay, so that what refers to your economic, monetary, and your fiscal policy. Then economic planning. What is your economic planning? You always have a budgetary system, right? Your 5 year budget, your 1 year plan, how much money should be brought into India, all these kind of things. So what are they saying? Your economic planning is very important. How much money is going to be revenued through the public sector? How much of money is going to be revenued through the private sector? All these are the plans which need to be put into form. Then your economic indices. What is your, how is your national income, your distribution of your how is your income being spent? Okay, through what are you saving, or what is your balance of payment, okay, that you need to pay to other countries. All these are the gates which was opened after 1991 economic reform. Okay, then your infrastructure. What is your infrastructure? The growth, the financial growth, or your banks or your modes of transport. Infrastructure refers to not only your business. Apart from your business, what are the other factors which is helping the business or which is affecting the business? That's what infrastructure refers to. So when we talk about the economic reforms on a macro level, these are the factors which are affecting the economic reforms. So what are the factors? The economic development, economic structure. If you see, the most easiest one is, all these points start with the word called E, economic. So you just need to remember economic development, structure, policies, planning, indices, and then infrastructural factor. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of your my time explaining on this topic because it's very simple and it's not very, we don't even know if it may come, may not come. So let's move into the next topic. So the next topic that we are going to be learning is the topic that we're going to be the yeah, this is the conclusion. Okay, in case you have any doubts, you don't know what you can write as a conclusion, you can write this. The to remove down various obstacles in your public sector and industrial sector, there was a lot of importance that they decided to give to the small scale industries or your private sector, and this opened the gates to three things. That's your liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So the next topic that we are going to, a very important topic, a very easy topic, I would actually be saying. So liberalization, globalization, privatization, this happened after the year 1991. Okay, so these things would come for 2 markers. Probably liberalization may come for a 4 marker, but As of now, they've never asked these topics. If they've asked, they've always asked it as like a solid answer of liberalization, globalization, privatization for a 4 marker, putting all these three things together. So please know the meanings of it. It's very, very important for you to know the meaning of it. Okay. So what is liberalization? Liberalization is nothing but cutting down unnecessary controls and restrictions when it comes to trade. Okay, that is, you are telling people, you're telling the business people or the industry people, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. You're laying along a lot of your rules and regulations in movement of goods and selling and buying of goods, and the tax rates are so high. So what is liberalization in simple? You're cutting down all these unwanted rules and regulations and these control systems and restrictions that you have laid, and you are allowing them, you're permitting them for license so that they can also cross the border and they can do business with other countries abroad. Okay, so that is what is called as liberalization. You're liberating India to go and to cut down unnecessary control restrictions and asking them to go ahead and do their business freely, okay, without any problem. Rules and regulations need to be there, but that doesn't mean it should be too harsh on the business so that they cannot do anything. So certain points which Indian industry has to take into their aspects is abolishing licensing requirements in most of the industries except a short list. So these are the things which happened during liberalization. That is contraction, no restrictions on expansion or contractive of business activities. Okay, abolishing licensing requirements when only during certain products have to be imported exported, you have a proper licensing system that has to be done. It doesn't mean that every time you cross the border, every time you need to do a licensing system. Okay, certain restrictions here and there was cut down. Then removal of restrictions on the movement of goods and services. So within India or outside India, if within India, if the restrictions was very high, so certain restrictions were removed. Then freedom in fixing the prices. So certain goods and services, the government will set the prices, but here some amount of freedom was given to the business. Then a reduction in the tax rates. What is this reduction in the tax rates? There was high tax that was levied on certain goods and services, so because of which the business was suffering. So with this liberalization, the tax rates were also reduced, and the procedure for importing and exporting was also reduced a little, because if you actually see your class 11, your import procedure or your export procedure, the procedures are too lengthy. So all these things were simplified after your liberalization. So learn the important terminologies. I think that is more than enough for you. Privatization, what is privatization? Just in one sentence, giving a lot of importance to the private sector companies, reducing the growth or reducing the role of your public sector companies. That is what is called as privatization. Very, very simple. So before 1991, what was it? A lot of importance was given to private public sector. But after 1991, they are reducing the role of public sector, giving a lot of importance to private sector. So if in case, see, it says the term disinvestment used here means transfer in the public sector enterprise to private sector. Now, how are you transferring a public sector to a private sector? Generally, if a company has to be owned or started, there has to be shares which should be bought by the public. 51, you already know this. If 51% of the shares are held by the government, the remaining 49% of the shares should be held by the let's say the public, that's the people. Okay, but if in case the government is holding more than 51% of the shares, then the public sector company will be cancelled and it would be shifted as a private sector company. So in simple terms, the government's dilution, their government's power over the private sector is reduced. See, there are three types of companies: government companies, public companies, and private companies. Government companies is something where 100% the government is in charge. No public can enter there. When you talk about public sector companies, only 51% of the shares can be held by the government. The remaining 49% is the people. Okay. Now, when you're talking about private sector company, no shares can be held by the government. It is totally the public who is investing or buying and selling the shares here. So that is what refers to the term disinvestment is used here, means transfer from public sector enterprise to private sector. So in before 1991, most of the companies were public sector. BEML, HL, all this, where 51% of the shares was held by the government. So after 1991, you see a lot of new companies that are coming in where all the shares are held by the private. So that is what is the meaning of privatization. Okay. Now the third thing is we have is globalization. Now, what is globalization? Now, before 1991, you could not go ahead cross the Indian border and you could not go ahead and do business with other, let's say, countries. But after 1991 reform, they opened the gates so that people could, let's say, business people could go ahead and buy and sell or trade with other countries. So that is what is called as globalization. It's an integration of various economies of the world, leading towards the emergence of cohesive global economy. And what are they saying? Till 1991, the government of India has followed policy of strictly regulating imports in value and volume terms. But after globalization, the level of interaction, the interdependency among various nations of global economy has increased. Okay, there's no longer barriers for business. You can trade with them freely with certain, let's say, with certain laws that you would follow. So it's nothing but you're opening the gates of globalization, meeting other countries and trading with them and buying with them. Okay, that's what is called as globalization. So these three things called liberalization, privatization, globalization is very, very important. Okay. So the next topic is demonetization. What is demonetization? Demonetization is, all of us know by now. Narendra Modi, Narendra Modi went ahead and curbed the corruption through because there was a lot of black money which was being stored by a lot of people. And these currencies were generally 500 and 1000 currencies. So overnight he passed a law telling that ended up announcing, telling that November 8th 2016, that's when he announced, telling that all these currencies are no longer valid. He gave us a certain date, telling by then you need to go and exchange these currencies and make sure you do not have these currencies. So when by then all these people who had saved this 500s and thousands went ahead and purchased a lot of, let's say, filthy cars. They ended up investing these money into other new things. So what happened? The government got to know where they are storing their money. So long it was not in the bank, so long it was not invested somewhere. But when they announced about demonetization, people ended up buying a lot of new things, right? So that itself shows that there's a lot of corruption that's happening in our country. And to to cut down this corruption, Narendra Modi came up with this particular concept called demonetization. So, in this particular topic, demonetization, the date is very important. Please learn the date. It would come as a 1 mark or 2 marker. They would ask you when did this announcement happen. So, the announcement happened on November 8th, 2016. We were given a liberalized day. We were given like 15 days or 20 days by when we had to go to the banks and exchange all our old notes to convert them into new notes. So there were no 500s, there were no thousands directly. There were only 2000 no currencies that were published or printed, and 500 new notes were printed. So, what is the main importance, or what is the main aim of the demonetization? It is to cut down corruption. Curb is nothing but cut down corruption, counterfeiting, the use of high denomination. So, what are they saying? A lot of people use these currencies and they save up these currencies, and they they save up, they save it up here and there, and uh, there's a lot of black money that's happening in India where the people are not paying their tax. So when this demonetization came into existence, we understood that how much of money is being stored by these people. Features of demonetization, again this topic may come may not come, but it's always better you learn, and it's more important that you only learn the points that I have underlined. That's more than enough. Keeping that, you can do your self explanatory. Now, what is the main aim of demonetization? Tax administration measure. People were not paying tax properly. They were saying that my income is only 1 lakh, but when it came to demonetization, all their income, they ended up going and paying their tax. So what happened? We understood that the income was not 1 lakh, the income was 12 lakhs. Okay. So proper tax administration had to be done. Okay. So by then, what did they do? They started going and investing their money into the banks, and their old notes were changed into new notes. That's what we were all doing, right? Then demonetization also interpreted as a shift of tax evasion. What's tax evasion? People who are not paying their tax, they started buying a lot of things. They started ended up to so what is it? People who were not reporting income, they were not telling that okay, I'm earning any income. All these kind of people who are not they're not telling their right income amount. All these people started going ahead and telling that okay, this is the amount of income I'm actually earning. So all this was tolerated before by government, but after demonetization could not be done by the business people. Then it also led to the tax administration channelizing savings. People started saving their money into the right channels, probably with their FDs, probably with their saving bank account. They, instead of illegally depositing it in different vaults, they actually started channelizing it and investing it in different things. So then what have happened? 500 currency, 1000 currencies, all these are small denominations. So he went ahead and printed 2000 note currencies. So now you don't have, when you keep you when you go to the ATM, you say I want 2000 rupees. When you click the button, it doesn't give you your 1000 rupee notes, or it hardly gives you any 500 rupee notes. Directly gives you a 2000 rupee note. So what is it? It's nothing but it is cutting down on your resources, and it's creating a less cash or cash light economy. Okay. So all these are the features of demonetization. Again, I would tell you, concentrate on the points that are underlined, study those are more than enough for you to go. Now the next topic, the last topic in this chapter we would be looking into, is a last topic in your chapter called business environment. And this particular topic I have put pictures in the initial for you so that you may learn with the help of pictures, learn the points. When you learn the points, the answer becomes self explanatory. Otherwise you would see the answer as a very complicated answer. Now this particular answer would come as an 8 marker, would come as a 4 marker. Please make note of it somewhere. Now, what is the impact of government policy changes on in business and industry? So, what are they saying? Why have I clubbed it with this particular topic? We have learned the economic reform, the policy after 1991. So, what they are saying is after 1991, how is the government affected, or how have these government policies of demonetization, the economic reforms, how is it affecting business and industry? Is there any change? Is there any change in business and industry that's taken place? So the answer is yes, there's a lot of change that's taken place in business and industry. What are the changes that's taken place with liberalization, privatization, globalization, with demonetization, is what we are going to be looking into. Okay. So the first one is increasing competition, with shaking hands with liberalization, globalization, and privatization. There's a lot of new companies that's coming in, so there's a lot of competition. Before it was only public sector organizations, but now it's private sector organizations as well. So you have your MNC companies which have come and set up their branches here in India. So there's a lot of competitions with this particular change in your government policies. There's more demanding customers who want new. They have their new fashion, their trends, their likes and dislikes. Why? Because American fashion has entered the Indian market. You have the UK fashion entered Indian market, so the customers know what they want. Before, it was only that they knew it was only Indian traditional dresses that people were wearing, but now they know what fashion is. They know what's tank tops. They know what's tube tops. They know what is palazzo pants. They know everything. Why? Because of the change in the reforms. Now, next is rapidly changing technology environment. Definitely, when you shake hands with other businesses abroad, there's technology that's improved. Why? Because when MNCs are coming into India, when they are coming in, they also bring their technology into India along with their people. Then, necessity for change. Instead of you looking into your all the traditional methods of doing your work, you are changing into the standardized way of doing your work. So all these, if you see, are simple things. You just have to learn the points. With the help of points, you can self explanate your answer. Then you have need for developing human resource. Human resource refers to employees development. Why? Because there are a lot of people now who are working in the private industries. Most of them, at least I would say, 80 to 90% of the people are working in the private sector companies, or they're working in the MNC companies. And what is happening? They need to develop themselves over and over and prove themselves worth. Then market orientation. Market orientation refers to your focus on the market, your customers' wants, how exactly you will innovate your products. All these. Then loss of budgetary support to public sector. So how exactly you're saving your money, investing your money into different things. All these are the impact of government policy changes on business and industry, which is very very easy. I have put down the points. I have not made any underlinement for you here, but it's easy for you to understand. So the first one, with liberalization, privatization, globalization, there was a lot of changes or important changes that happened in the government, which affected the business and industry. You know, with the increasing competition of the business or with the Indian firms, what happened? There was a lot of things that the auxiliaries of trade was affected. That is what the service sector industry, the banking, the insurance, the let's say telecommunication industry, all these things were affected, and there was a lot of increasing competition from one company to the other company. Okay, so mainly the competition was in these particular sectors present before in the public sector. Then more demanding customer. I told you the customers know their wide choice in purchasing. Why? Because now they know the quality. They know the Indian quality and they know the American quality also. So depending on that, they want to purchase their products. So the next one is a rapid changing technological environment. So what is happening here? The environment is changing. When the environment changes, the business has to keep improvising on technology. Like I've told you, technological environment, new modernized techniques of doing their work, improving their techniques, new innovation style, or all these things have to plays a lot of major role. Necessity for change. So what are they saying? Prior to 1991, there was no change. There was only public sector. But post 1991, there's a lot of policies, rules, and regulations that have been changed, practices that's been brought into existence. So because of this, what has happened? It's a new era. It's a new world that we are leading our life in, which is more innovative, which is more ever changing, and it's unpredictable. Yeah. So the next one is a need for developing human resources. So these employees, these people are joining different organizations. So every time they're joining different organizations, they need to get trained. They need to be more committed, and they should know what their work is, what is being expected of them to do. So all these are done after 9. Yes. So the next one is market orientation. What is market orientation? So before, it was you earlier firms used to produce first and then go and sell it in the market. This is something that is I've repeated again and again in marketing chapter. So before, what used to happen is the organizations should used to produce their products, then go sell it in the market, and then everybody would buy the products. But now it's the other way around. It's market orientation. It's more of you taking a survey of your product first. So you do sampling of your product, you go, you put up stalls outside your shops, you start advertising about your product on the television and all, and then you see how is the response for your product, and only then you go ahead and manufacture your product, right? So that is what is called as market orientation. So before, it was product orientation, where people would manufacture the products and then sell it confidently. That was prior 1991. Post 1991, what happened? It became marketing orientation, where people will first go ahead, advertise about their product, find reviews about their product, sample their product, and then they would go ahead and manufacture and sell their products so that they don't undergo a loss. One is loss of budgetary support to the public sector. So what is happening here? The before, the central government was supporting the public sector, was providing a lot of money for the survival and growth, but now the government is also encouraging the private sector to go ahead and do businesses with various countries abroad, so that they can so that India's GDP, India's growth rate would increase. So this is the last particular chapter, okay, called your business environment. Now this particular, as I've told you, this impact of government policies is an 8 marker and would come for a 4 marker. Please ensure to learn this answer, because most of the papers have seen this answer. I have seen this answer also. Dimensions is also come for a practical oriented question or gets asked for a 4 marker. Then here also, these features and importance, all these are topics which would come for 4 marker or 8 marker. Please ensure to learn it, okay? So any doubts you have, any questions you have, please ensure to let me know. Just send me a message in the comment box or get in touch with me. I would be happy to help you. So as of this chapter, we close this chapter. We coming to the end. Stay tuned. Let me know if you have any doubts, and thank you for patiently listening.